Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the White House. My name is John Carson. I'm the Director of the Office of Public Engagement. I want to welcome everyone who's following online today, everyone here in the audience, and of course, let's start with a big round of applause for our champions of change. I'm here today first to tell you a little bit about the Champions of Change program, and second, I have an ask for each and every one of you, those following online, here in the audience, and of course our champions. We started Champions of Change because this president and this administration understands two things. First, that we have no monopoly on good ideas. That while we are here in Washington, we have folks like our Let's Move Champions of Change all across the country who are making a difference in their community every single day. And so we wanted to use our spotlight power to lift them up because, well, we're here debating the latest budget, debating the latest issue. There are millions of people like our Champions of Change here today who are making a difference happen everywhere. And so my simple ask for all of you is to tell your story. Tell your story of being here today. Tell the story of the difference that you're making. Tell the story of how you've taken the ideas of Let's Move, made them real in your community, in your network, in your family. Whether you're online, whether you're here in the audience, or of course, our champions of change. Because what we've often seen is that sometimes our champions who are making such a difference in their community are sometimes the most humble people who need that encouragement to make sure you're telling your story, both to share information. You've seen what Let's Move can do to transform a community, to transform a school. We want you to share that information, but also we want you to inspire others to action. Because when they hear your story, when they hear what you've done, they will say, that's someone I know, that's someone in my community, I could make change as well. So we wanted to make sure, of all the Champions of Change events we've done, we've had few that have been around such an important issue to the Obama family. And knowing that we were going to ask you to tell your story, we wanted to make today a little extra special. So here to kick things off, none other than the person who made Champions, Let's Move happen, First Lady Michelle Obama.
Thank you all so much. Rest yourselves. You can move later. I am just delighted to be here. I'm not going to talk long. I want to give you all the space to tell your stories and talk to one another. But I just wanted to thank everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I want to thank and congratulate our Champions of Change, in particular Shelley, who has been just amazing with Let's Move. She and I, we have played soccer and done Olympic events. We've done a little bit of everything together, and she's just been amazing. I also want to thank John Carson for all of his work as well. But Let's Move is critical. It is one of my signature projects, as you all know, and focusing on physical activity is a key part of the focus of our effort this year. And I tell this story all the time about how life has changed in so many communities. I remember when I was growing up, you know, our days were spent outside. You had to be outside. Your mother didn't let you come inside. And we spent our days figuring out how to make life exciting, which required us to move. Every little kid knew how to jump double dutch. We were playing jacks. We loved to play this game called Piggy, where you'd hit a 16-inch softball. If you caught it, then you got to be the batter. Play that for hours. We played a game called Chase, which was simple. Boys chase the girls, then the girls chase the boys. And we would be out for hours, and for us, you know, that was play, that was fun. But things have changed for so many kids and communities around our nation. You know, more of our kids are in front of a screen. 7.5 hours a day is the average screen time for kids in our lives. Recess is gone from schools. Gym class is eliminated. Sports are often the first things that are cut out of programs. So for many of our kids, this whole notion of moving and playing, we've just made it more difficult. And as a result, we've made it more difficult for our families. You know, it's very, very tough to tell a parent to do the best for their kids when they don't feel like it's safe for them to go outside and play. You know, many of our neighborhoods don't allow for kids to just play freely and ride their bikes. It's not safe. So part of what we want to do with Let's Move is to take the work that so many of you all are doing as coaches and teachers and physical activity specialists. All of you are doing some wonderful things. We want you to share those ideas. We want you to tell your stories. We want to bring back movement and play into our children's lives. And this is not just about how our kids look. This is about how they feel, and it's about how they feel academically, because we all know, especially the teachers in the room, that if we want our kids to focus on reading and math, they need to be able to burn off that steam. They've got to come to school with a good meal in their stomachs, and we've worked on that when it comes to school lunches. We've talked about nutrition, but we also know that kids have to get their bodies moving to connect that to their brains. And for all of us, I know that I am an avid proponent of making sure that my girls are involved in some kind of sport, and particularly for our young women. You know, we want them to know what it feels like to sweat, to compete, to win, to lose. But it's not always that easy. And Let's Move, we're trying to, you know, lift up the wonderful programs and efforts that are going on all around the country, and you guys play a critical role in helping us do that. And we so appreciate the work that you do in communities all across this country. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't get some letter that moves me to tears from, you know, a mother. I got one recently, the mother of an amputee, who is finding ways to set new and exciting goals for her daughter to make sure that she's up and moving, and how she's become a role model in her community and she's planning to run a marathon. Or a young kid who shows me the before and after pictures of himself, and how he was an overweight kid, and now with changing his diet and taking up a sport, he's changed his life and he's become a role model for his entire school. So change and wonderful stories like these are going on in communities all across the country. We are making progress, and we are doing it because of the work that you do. Let's Move really is intended to shine a spotlight on the good work that's already going on, so that people know that they're not alone out there trying to make these changes. And hopefully, because you've got the support of the White House and so many important people, that we make your work just a little bit easier. So I want you all to enjoy this day, this time here. You know, don't be bashful. We want to hear your stories. We want you all to network with one another, which is key, because part of being successful is knowing that you're not alone, even if it means that you're reaching across a state or a county line to connect with people who think like you in other parts of the country. So use this opportunity to exchange cards and phone numbers and emails and whatever else you do to stay connected. And I hope to see you as we travel around the country, because I will continue to be out there, hopefully running and playing and jumping a little double dutch and making a fool out of myself with kids, so that we can show them that we, as our kids' first and best role models, aren't afraid to move ourselves. They kind of do what we do oftentimes. So congratulations. Thank you for taking the time. Our champions, thank you all for the work that you do. Keep it up. We want you to be really tired by the time you get through with us. And you all, thank you again. Enjoy your time here. Oh, I have one last job, to turn it over to Sam Cass.
How's everybody? How's everybody doing? That was pretty great, right? What else is there to say? She's pretty amazing. So just to start off, first of all, thank you all for being here. Thank you and congratulations. Your work has been inspiring to all of us, and so we look forward to hearing all about some of the great activity and work you're doing across the country. And thank you for the work that has been going on across the country for decades. It has been a platform that we have been working off of to help grow and expand and take to whole new heights. And it's only by the work that's been happening in communities across the country that we've been able to do what we've been doing here since day one. And this First Lady, as you can tell, is committed to this from her heart and as a mom first. So a little bit of context for how we're approaching these issues, just to get a sense of the framework that all this activity is happening in. And then I'm going to turn it over, and I want to hear from the folks who've been doing the work all over the country. The First Lady, as you can see, she really has a vision for this nation. And it's a vision that calls upon all of us to step back, take a look at what we're doing as business leaders, as parents, as coaches, as teachers, as community members, and ask ourselves, what can we do to help support the health and well-being of our nation's kids? And when we step back and take a look at what's happening and what's at stake, the numbers are pretty devastating. As you all know, 1 in 3 kids in this country is overweight or obese. And the CDC predicts that 1 in 3 of our nation's young people will have diabetes in their lifetime. 1 in 3. And in minority communities, it's closer to 1 in 2. And so when you step back and think about the implications that has on our nation, on our economy, on our healthcare system, across the board, it's pretty significant. We're already spending $150 billion a year treating obesity-related conditions. And what it takes, the toll that it takes on our education system as well. Everybody here knows, and if you ask any teacher, kids can't learn. Their learning goes down when they're not getting the activity that they need. But when it's probably hit me the hardest is when we sit across from retired 4-star generals who tell us that childhood obesity and obesity in general may be our nation's greatest national security threat. It is the #1 reason for disqualification from military service. 27% of 17 through 24-year-olds cannot serve in our military because of obesity. And the Army has had to create a boot camp for a whole other population to make it into the Army, and we've had to lower the standards of who can enter. So when you think about, across the board, what we're grappling with here, the stakes are really, really high. So that's why it's in the context of this that the work that you're doing and the efforts of the First Lady are so important. We've really tried to look at this issue in a comprehensive fashion, trying to make sure we are touching every lever we can to have the impact on this issue in as many innovative and creative ways as possible. But we know that however well our kids are eating, if they're not getting the activity that they need, we're simply not going to be successful. When kids are getting in lower school, 2% of kids, 4% in middle schools, and 8% in middle schools and 4% in high schools are getting daily PE classes. When only half of our nation's kids live in range of a park, we know our kids aren't going to be growing up living the healthy lives that they deserve. So the stakes are high. The stakes are high for these conversations. The stakes are high for the work that you're doing. And we are just so thrilled and inspired and optimistic that as we continue to try to unite around these issues and leverage our collective efforts, that we're really going to turn this around. I don't think anybody could have imagined just in 2 years how quickly these issues would start to move and the progress we'd made. So we're thrilled. We think this is yet another starting point to take this work to a higher level, and we can't wait to hear all that comes out. We're listening here. So for us, we can't wait to hear ideas from everybody, have a real discussion so that we know what's working, what's not, how we can be better equipped and strategically target our efforts to really take this to a place that's going to really support the health and well-being of our kids. So with that, I'm going to turn it over because these are the most interesting people that I need to hear from today. So if David Hayes, would you please come up and introduce our guest, the Deputy Secretary of the Interior, who has been a champion for Let's Move Outside, as well as a number of programs to get kids active in our communities. So please welcome Mr. David Hayes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sam. It's great to be here. So if any of you are wondering where you might move, try our national parks, try our public lands, try our national refuges, right? This summer, get out there and start on the mall. America's backyard. So I've got an easy job here. I'm just going to introduce our folks here today. We're going to, I think, well, we'll see. Maybe hold the applause till we get to the end. I just want to introduce who you are and where you're from, and then we're going to turn it over to Shelley and get the show on the road. So first, we've got Andre Ashley from Portland's Park and Recreation, Portland, Oregon. Why don't you raise your hand when I call your name? Great. Hector Avila from Houston Parks and Recreation Soccer for Success program. Brian Bear Bosto from the Brookston Community Center Lax for Life program from Fond du Lac Reservation in Minnesota. Sarah Butcher from the YMCA and JCC of Greater Toledo, Toledo, Ohio. Did I butcher your name, Sarah? Booker, Sarah Booker. I did butcher Sarah Booker's name. Robert Castaneda from Beyond the Ball, Chicago, Illinois. Robert, welcome. Cindy Coughlin from the Alice B. Beale Elementary School, Fuel Up to Play 60, Springfield, Massachusetts. Cameron Hialeah from Team Up for Youth, Coaching Corps, UCLA, Los Angeles, California. Was I close? No, you didn't. All right.
Haji Ali Akbar.
All right, thank you. First name, Cameron. Richard Kozil, Step into Cuba Alliance from Cuba, New Mexico.
Kozol.
Kozil. Okay, Richard, but you're from Cuba, New Mexico. This one I'm going to get right. Kenny Owens from DC Scores, Washington, D.C. Melissa Stockwell, Dare to Try, Chicago, Illinois. Shawanda Weems from the New York Public Schools, the Mighty Milers program, New York, New York. Dr. Carolyn Ward, PhD from the Kids in Parks program in Asheville, North Carolina. And finally, Chris West, who's a PE teacher from Boulder Elementary School in Fort Collins, Colorado. A big welcome to our champions. So let me turn it over now to Shelley Pohl, who's the Executive Director of the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition. Shelley, thank you.
Thanks so much. Welcome, everyone. See, it was worth the wait, right? That was the patience part of the day. Well, again, congratulations, and I think you guys can have your seats, and then you'll be up in the next panel. So we'll let these guys sit down for a few minutes, and we're going to really get some good information from the folks that are up here. So again, congratulations to all of our champions of change. I don't know if anyone mentioned this, but there were over 600 nominations for these awards. And there wasn't but a pretty small window to nominate, if you recall. So that tells us that there's a lot of good things going on across our country and a lot to be hopeful for. And as Sam said, look at what we've done, certainly in the last 2 years, but for many of you, for many of us, we've been working on this for decades. This is a culmination of much of the work that you've been doing. So again, congratulations. Let's get started with a few questions. I'll throw a few questions out, and if we have time, we'll take any questions from the crowd. But we are on a time frame, so we can get our other award winners up here as well. I'm going to start with Cindy. Hi. Cindy from Springfield, Mass., correct? Right. Okay. So Cindy represents... she is a PE and health teacher from Alice Beale Elementary School, which is also a Fuel Up to Play 60 school. And so hopefully she'll tell us a little bit more about Fuel Up to Play 60 for those of you not yet in the know. So Cindy, we know that quality physical education, and I emphasize the word quality, physical education as well as quality instructors are so critical to ensuring children that they have the important skills that they need to take into adulthood, and that they're getting that 60 minutes of physical activity a day that the physical activity guidelines say that we should. Tell us about your approach at your school and the impact of PE and programs like Fuel Up to Play 60 have to your kids, your school, your community.
Well, our school is a small urban school, which means that the children don't get out to play that much. And so we have to be the ones to provide that. And what we found was with Fuel Up to Play 60, it was really a spark that brought our school to a different level. Our children weren't getting the exercise that they should be. They stayed in a lot, but it's not their fault that they did that. So Fuel Up to Play 60 came along, and I've been in the program. Our school has been in the program for 2 years now. And the first year, I wasn't really sure if this would be a good match for us, but I found out that the Fuel Up program is sponsored by the National Dairy Council and the NFL. What a great, I wish I came up with that idea. What a great partnership. So to get the NFL involved, which sparked a lot of children's minds saying, wow, I love football and this sounds great, came to us just every day now. The children look forward to our programs. So some of our programs that we do at our school are Fuel Up related. So if we're eating healthy in one thing, we're actually getting 60 minutes of exercise. And we have the children take that message home with them because we can only do so much at school and they need to be able to go out and play. So finding out how the program works comes back to us from the students who say, Mrs. Coughlin, I went out and played for 60 minutes playing baseball. I played soccer. I rode my bike. We went to the park. So that means that they're actually coming back and realizing that the program does work. With the Fuel Up program, last year I wrote a grant and received $2,800. Part of that went to eating healthy, and the other part went to equipment for the program, physical exercise equipment. This year I wrote a grant and received a grant from the Fuel Up program for $4,000. Half of that went to eating healthy. The other half this year will be the first school in Springfield to have a bike unit. I'm purchasing a shed and asking for gently used bicycles to teach our 4th and 5th graders to learn how to ride. Since we're a neighborhood school, our school is close enough for the students to ride their bikes to school. So we're working on that and walking, but many don't. So by putting this all together, I think that would help to spark the students say, okay, I've learned how to ride my bike safely at school. I can ride to school. And the parents will feel safe having their students ride to school.
Great, thank you. So one of the things that resonates with me is that it's not just about physical activity, it's not just about nutrition. It has to be about both and how we are combining these in whatever setting that we're in. Whether we're in a park or a school or a community organization, it doesn't matter, that we've got to address both. So thank you very much. I'm going to stay over here with Dr. Kozal. Did I say it right? Kozal? All right. Who's from Cuba, New Mexico. And Dr. Kozal's program promotes outdoor recreation and physical activity throughout New Mexico, actually, and particularly through infrastructure development. And we hear this terminology a lot, infrastructure and built environment. And how are we enhancing our built environment to make it more accessible and make it the easy choice to be active? And so tell us a little bit about that and how your work to garner more sidewalks and paths and trails, and how that has enhanced your communities.
Certainly. Well, my situation is considerably different than Cindy's. We live in a very small, rural, isolated community in northwest New Mexico, and we have a great deal of trouble with both infrastructure and resource availability. But one thing we do have, which is a significant asset, and that is our public lands. City, county, national forest, BLM lands surround us and are easily accessible. And that has been complemented by a donation of open space land. So our program has focused on connecting our community to those public lands. And it's our belief that it's difficult for children and youth to be active unless the community is active. So we wanted to create a community culture of activity. So we thought the most logical approach was to develop sidewalks, paths, and walkways to connect us to each other and to connect us to our public lands, which are so close and so strikingly beautiful to spend time in. And that basically has required partners. We've recruited a broad partnership that includes 3 land management agencies, an academic partnership with the University of New Mexico Prevention Research Center, a partnership with county, city, and regional transportation planning agency, a partnership with our State Department of Transportation, and a little bit of help from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. But we've been able to put a lot of external partners in close communication with a lot of local volunteers, a lot of local youth that also volunteer on our projects, and hopefully we're creating a environment of physical activity that we have been losing for several generations. Ancestors in our area tended to live very actively several generations ago, and we're trying to reconnect our youth to the life that their grandparents and great-grandparents once had.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Kozal. Again, we're hearing from both of these partnerships, and many of you all out here represent those partners that are working on the national, state, and local level. So I think we're going to hear that a lot today. I'm going to jump over here to Kenny next. Kenny's a native Washingtonian. Remember, he's with DC Scores. And so it must be especially fulfilling to work with a sport that you love and work with kids all over the district here. As a competitive soccer player himself throughout his career, childhood, college, and now executive director of DC Scores.
Program director.
Pardon?
Program director.
Program director.
Yeah, I know she's watching.
That's the
so
most important. That's right.
Not trying to go there.
The guy that gets stuff done, in other words. So you're the guy we want to talk to.
Exactly.
Just so we're clear. So tell us a little bit about how your program impacts those inner city kids, those underserved kids who are looking for an outlet, looking to engage in a program where someone cares where they show up and really what it means for them and their lives.
Right. So DC Scores is an after-school program, and we're in 27 schools throughout the city. We're not only a soccer program, but we're also a creative writing, service learning, and poetry program. So we try to work on the entire child, not just, the athletic piece of them. But as my job as a program director of DC Scores, I actually hire coaches. And one of the reasons I feel our program works so well is we hire teachers within the school to implement our program. So what we really look towards is having these teachers create a structure outside of the school day, because what happens a lot, when you're in the school day and you're in the classroom, there's different rules that apply. So what we try to do is get teachers to build different relationships outside of the classroom and on the soccer field. And it's been successful for us. We, like I said earlier, are in 27 schools, and we're going to expand thanks to the U.S. SIF grant and the U.S. Soccer Foundation to hopefully 19 more schools in this coming fall. So same thing with the partnerships. We're excited about that partnership, and we look forward to doing that in the fall.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I'm going to stay over on this side, Dr. Ward. Dr. Ward is the CEO of the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation in North Carolina, in Asheville. Beautiful country, right? She's the only philanthropic funding partner of a physical activity program represented here on this panel. Give us some advice on how organizations that are motivated to develop, especially outdoor fitness programs, can target funding sources that are more likely to support their efforts.
And I'm going to get inundated as soon as this is over. Thank you for that, Shelley. We're in a very unique position at the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation because we work both sides of the coin. We give money to our partner, the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is the most visited unit of the National Park Service, and they come to us and want projects and programs funded. So we provide funding for them. But we also seek funding from other organizations, individuals, donors, so we work on both sides. And no matter which side of that equation that we're on, the key for that in seeking funding is looking for a match of mission, what it is that we're both trying to accomplish. Chasing money and changing what you're doing to match the money source usually is not very successful. And so whether it's the money like we've gotten for our Kids in Parks program that was funded through the Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina Foundation, whose mission is for the health of North Carolinians, our purpose at the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation was thinking about the health of our parks, because we have a rate of about 7 to 12% of our visitors bring children. And at the most visited unit of the Park Service, if only 7 to 12% are bringing kids, where's that future generation of stewards going to come from? And so we care about the health of the park. And we know that the health of our kids and the health of the people in our community are linked to the health of our park. So for us, it was a perfect match to find the funding for that program. And we do the same thing when we look for other funding sources like the National Park Foundation and others that have been very helpful for us in this program.
Great, great. So matching the mission with your
Absolutely.
program and looking for those funders that are working in that area. Great. Thank you. I'm going to stay over here again. We're going to talk to Shawanda Weems from New York City. Yes?
Yes.
Shawanda is a public school teacher for more than a decade. Bless you.
Thank you.
Obviously, you've experienced firsthand the difficulties children have with concentration and behavior, and that all affects their academic performance. How would you describe the social and academic impact of physical education, as well as these out-of-school time programs, some of which we've talked about here, and your Mighty Milers, which is why you're being awarded here? How would you describe the importance of those programs on kids, especially those kids, let's say 5 to 16, so elementary, middle school, high school?
Okay. I work in a K-8 in New York City, very rewarding and at times challenging work. What we had the opportunity to do was to come into collaboration with the New York Road Runners, which is the umbrella organization for the New York City Marathon, the premier place to run. And that being said, they saw the importance of introducing young people to the sport of running, so that is a groundwork and a grassroots movement so that the runners start younger. And with us, we were able to, I work in the Bronx, New York, and the students, pretty much as educators, we look for testing first and the priorities of the mission of academic excellence, which is very much important. But as an educator, I also came into contact with seeing the students that weren't eating at home and weren't being nourished with their mind and their body. It plays out in their academic work and the lack of academic success. So the New York Road Runners, in partnership with my school in the Bronx, PS15, we were able to pretty much introduce the sport of running to students from ages 5 all the way to high school and past. So I run 2 actual programs. One is the Young Runners, and that engages middle school students ages 12 to 14 in the sport of cross-country running. And that is the out-of-school component of after-school excellence. So they engage in running 3 times a week, 60 minutes per session, and then that transforms to Mighty Milers, which is the in-school component of our program, which across New York City has 125,000 students, one program in every state of the United States that exposes young people from ages 5 in their youth to outtime play, what Mrs. Obama alluded to, the idea of play, the idea of movement, the idea of running. And overall, what we've seen in our school is that the students that are engaged in these programs on a consistent basis through Mighty Milers and Young Runners, their scores have gone up, their love for the sport has grown, their idea of the connection between academic excellence and personal fitness and success is definitely on the forefront. So we've seen that growth in our school and within our students with the support of the New York Road Runners.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I think for many of us in this room, we are always looking to find that connection between the physical activity, good nutrition, and academic success, right, and all that that entails. And so to know that it can be done, that those things can be measured, and we can show that success is really important to all of our work here.
Absolutely.
So thank you, thank you. All right, and finally, Chris, down in the corner, our PE teacher. So Chris is from Colorado, Fort Collins, right?
Yes.
Fort Collins, Colorado, and many of us know Colorado's usually the top. They're the healthiest state, although they're trending in the not so good direction. So don't get too cocky down there. So you know we got to keep you going out there. But you guys have been a leader overall in terms of the health of all of your citizens. From your school standpoint and the great work that you've done as a PE teacher, tell us how you've kind of rallied students and parents and administrators, all of those groups and more around innovative methods to integrate science and literacy, et cetera, with your PE classes and vice versa.
Sure. First, I'd like to thank, it all comes from partnerships, and this all started with 2 important women in my life, which is my mom, to empower me to speak my mind, and I got me in a lot of trouble for my life, but it helps me to stand up for what I believe in. And then my wife for teaching me how to be very compassionate and caring to human beings, because she just shows me. She doesn't tell me, she shows me. And that's what's really been able to make me to have partnerships and be here today. And actually to talk about the lean state controversy. My wife's an epidemiologist, and when you look at statistics, you got to look deeper when you hit the buzzwords, because the childhood obesity rate, we're actually, if you look from 2003 to 2007, if you look at the rate of increase, we're actually the second fastest to Nevada. So there actually is a huge problem. People just look, oh, I'm Coloradan. We have the life. We're lean, we're fit, and we're active. We are active, and it is our environment that helps us to be active, but not necessarily in the classroom. So that's one of the things I want to talk about today is actually how do you change the classroom? Well, I'm not really a classroom teacher. I'm a PE teacher. I'm a gym teacher. So, and I deal with that battle every day, and I'm okay with that. But I like to change the mindset of what we can do in PE. So first I had to change my students. That was the biggest struggle. My students are like, what are we doing math and PE for? What are we doing science and PE? Why are we doing literacy? And I had to show them and tell them why is it important for them to learn in physical education that you can learn math, you can learn science, and you can learn literacy. And so what we did is we developed a heart obstacle course that has changed into, if anybody's familiar with the Magic School Bus, we actually changed that to the Magic School Bus inside the human heart. And so my students, the way I learned physiology in college, it wasn't from sitting there and look at the textbooks. I had to get creative and go into the environment. So I actually take my kids in the journey of the Magic School Bus inside the human heart. And then luckily this year, my third grade team, it's been awesome. Instead of having the traditional Valentine's Day party during Heart Month, which is great, we want to do physical activity, and then we give them all this candy. So my teachers and I talked, and they said, well, Chris, we're going to get you a sub so kids don't lose PE, and can you have a party for us? And I said, sure. So our party was the Magic School Bus inside the human heart. And the next part of the partnership was nice is instead of teachers dropping their kids off to PE, they actually came in class and got to see me teach science, see me teach literacy with the students, which was really empowering to the point where they said, that was so much fun. We don't want to tell anybody else because we want to have it next year. We don't want anybody else taking that time. So that was a huge success program. And that leads me to talking about how it's not just with my students. I had to move with my art, music, PE myself, and tech team. And we did a program called Down on the Farm. And we actually, all 4 areas, took our first graders and brought our parents in. So it's that connection with the parents. And our parents got to go through art, music, PE, and technology at a night event on the theme of Down the Farm. And in PE, they actually got to walk on the food guy pyramid. I know we changed it to the plate now, but it was the food guy pyramid. And then in art, they made bracelets about the food group representations. And online, they went and they found out about how much food I should get from the food group. So it was a combination partnership. So it's not just the PE teacher that's saying it. And I have to step out of PE and step out into the other areas, which leads me to the next part, because I only see my kids 45 minutes a week. How much activity can I really give them in that much time? And it's really empowering other people. So the next step was for me, okay, back to the Magic School Bus. Okay, how can I change the yellow school bus field trip? Well, Fort Collins is very bike friendly. So, but that doesn't mean we're smart and we know how to cycle. So I became a league certified instructor, and I teach my kindergartners through 5th graders bike safety in PE at school with lots of community partnerships to help me make that happen. And then my 4th and 5th grade, where it's developmentally appropriate for them to see depth perception, we actually take them and teach them the rules of the road so that they can be smart cyclists. Because putting a helmet on doesn't make you smart, it makes you smart, but it doesn't make you safe. Learning the rules of the road can make you safe, to know to stop, look both ways before you cross. So we teach those skills to the kids, and then we take them to our community gardens where they learn about how to plant and putting seeds in and the life cycle of the plants. And that was great. My 4th grade team was there. My parents were there. The community was there. And still, the next thing that leads me to a partnership, it can't just stop there. It has to keep growing. And where do kids spend most of their times? And actually, I told this to my kids a lot. Sometimes I feel like I want to be a classroom teacher, because if I'm a classroom teacher, I see you every day. I'll see you all day long, and I can influence you more. When I'm in PE, I can only get just a little bit of your time. So I'm changing the environment within the classrooms, where we actually have stability balls in the classrooms, down to even our 1st graders sit on stability balls, to where we have rail yard, where kids sit on rails and they do brain breaks. So actually, if you look at the science, I give this cue card. You won't be able to see it, but I always love to teach the science of it all and the why to my students. And this is a CAT scan of the brain, and it's basically, I tell the kids, blue's not good, and you all, if you looked at your brain right now, it'll probably be blue because you've been sitting too long. And sitting's the least effective learning environment. And yet we think we just sit and tell and tell and tell, and they're going to learn it. And so then the other part is getting up, and it's where our brain turns really red. It's after just walking for 20 minutes. And so that's what helps me to teach my teachers and my students why you need to have brain breaks in the classrooms, and so that it keeps going on and on and on.
Wow, that's great. Chris, were you fortunate to have administrators, the principal or whatever, that were on board from the beginning, or did you kind of have to sell them?
You know, my principal, without a doubt, supports me, and he supports my passion and my push constantly. And, you know, but it's not that we always think the same way, but I'm just very tactful about, if it doesn't work this way, I go this way. But it's not, you have to have that support, but it doesn't necessarily have to. I'm lucky to have my principal support me. I'm lucky to have teachers support me, but not everybody supports me. There's people who don't believe it, but at the level that they can believe in it, that's what they do, and that's where I push for them, whatever they're ready for, and that's why it's so successful.
Absolutely. So here's a guy that technically sees the kids 45 minutes a week. And we were wanting kids to get 60 minutes a day of moderate to vigorous physical activity. So he's figured out a way to motivate the kids, to motivate the parents, to engage his fellow teachers, to helping these kids meet their daily goal. It can be done. And we have, again, having crisscrossed this country over the past couple of years, I know that there are many great individuals and stories and of people that have taken impossible circumstances and made things possible. So again, congratulations. How are we doing on time? Got 5? Okay, great. I've got just 1 or 2 more questions here. Not everybody has to answer this, but if you have a comment on it, I'm going to go back to resources again, because again, as I crisscross the country, everybody says, well, if I just had more resources, if I just had dollars, if I just had this. And some of you have talked about getting grants, and you know, grants are both an art and a science, we know. But some of you have talked about just utilizing the resources, the human resources, as well as whatever financial capital, if you will, if you have in your community. But can you talk about your ability or the necessity of just really grabbing on to whatever capital, human or otherwise, that you can get for your programs? Anybody have thoughts on that?
As being a specialist in working with scarce resources, I've been a family doctor for almost 40 years, and I'm used to working one-on-one with people, and yet I saw the problem was a resource-poor environment where we needed help. And that was the importance of the external partners, because I am the first to admit I knew nothing about transportation planning, I knew nothing about trail building, I knew nothing about land management, but these were all areas of expertise that we needed. And so my suggestion is look for the external partnerships and try to get the expertise and the resources through your partners.
You know, I would echo that. We started our program, Kids in Parks, with 3 partners, 1 funding source, 1 location, and pulling in physicians all over the country that care about the health of their patients, and schools. We have nature trail disc golf courses in schools. We have teachers and principals, and looking, I can't know everything. And so finding those experts out there that can help you in leveraging your capacity is really the key. Like Jason, one of our folks we brought in to run our program, if it hadn't been for him, we wouldn't have the nature trail disc golf. And so everybody that comes in brings something unique to the table and can help increase dramatically your capacity.
And that's similar with DC Scores. You know, like I said earlier, we're in 27 schools, and there's things that we do great as far as working with teachers, training coaches. But, you know, we might not have the best evaluation system, so we have to partner with other organizations that do that well in order to get money or in order to have a successful program. So I think partnerships are extremely important if you're trying to expand at any level.
Right, the work can't be done without a partnership. So for New York Road Runners is our resource, and in collaboration with the New York City Department of Education, they're able to pretty much fund the work that we do, so that the children just don't walk away with the ability to think that I can walk for this amount of time or that I can run, but they have incentives, they have medals, they have T-shirts, they have bags. So it's a constant visible reminder for a 5-year-old, I want to get that next mile, medal, and that I'm working towards this incentive. And that's the work that we just wouldn't be able to do without the partnership of New York Road Runners and our Department of Education.
Great, great. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, and the same thing with my school. If my principal wasn't supportive of the program, if the teachers at the school weren't excited about everything we do, we wouldn't have any of the programs there. I work with the school adjustment counselor, and we have a great partnership. We do many of the programs, and so we're putting socialization with physical education, which is really a great match. And without her help, many of these programs wouldn't happen. So just in my school alone, the people in my school are incredible source of resource and just support of all the programs that I do.
Sure, and real quick, just all my success is really built upon partnerships. We do have grants. I don't want to get into those details, but really, grants, if you're looking for grants, that's great, but you got to start with the foundation of how it's going to sustain, and that's really based upon partnership building. There are so many people who are passionate about this, to the point where this is a nice reward where I get to tell everybody my story, but my favorite award that I got was from a student who became a youth senator for the day, and she went down and talked to Senator Bob Bacon, and actually her mock bill, and I had no idea she was going down there. That was the best part about this, was daily PE, PE for 3 days a week at least. And that's the huge part, is building those partnerships. That's what the grant people want to hear, is how you're going to sustain that after, and it's really by building partnerships.
Yeah, great. That's a great point, that sustainability. And I think as funders, they want to know how you're going to be sustainable. So partnerships is key. Also part of sustainability is building those new users, right? As you talked about. Who's going to appreciate the parks if our kids are not experiencing them, and how will they be good stewards of our land and our resources? So I think that's another theme that has come through. So wow, this has been great. Congratulations again to all of you. Let's give our wonderful award winners a round of applause. I think we can see, I don't want to call these folks ordinary, but you know, these are ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I think we have so many people out there across the country that are doing just that. And as much as we can lift them up, we absolutely should as we move forward. So thank you again. I'm going to ask you guys to make your way down, and as they're coming down and our new panelists are coming up, I'm going to reintroduce you to Sam Cass, as the First Lady did. Sam is the Assistant Chef at the White House, and he's also the Senior Advisor for Healthy Food Initiatives in the Office of the First Lady. So Sam, back to you.
Can we give Shelley a round of applause? She's just amazing. We have enough seats? Everybody doing all right? It's pretty great, huh? Pretty amazing work. It's just it keeps us going to hear these stories and get this information. It really it helps shape us in the most, in pretty profound ways. So now we're going to talk about all the other places where kids' lives are being touched and impacted with physical activity, and what's happening with kids outside of school. What's happening with kids, when they go home in their communities, and what's going on? How can we work together, and how can we help unite this space? And I think that's going to be something we're really going to try to work on here. Is how do we bring our efforts together, leverage all the resources and knowledge and wisdom that's being put in, so it raises all boats. And I think the more we work and amplify our messaging together, the more successful we're all going to be. So I think it's appropriate to start this discussion with Cameron. Would you agree with that?
I agree as well.
So you are the youngest champion of change, and I think there's a couple of things I would love to hear from you. One is, how can we speak to youth in a way that really engages, excites them, and motivates them? You've done amazing work starting coaching corps in your high school.
UCLA.
I'm sorry, in your college. Sorry. At UCLA, of course. Sorry,
So
you're not that young.
A little bigger than my high school.
Yes, a lot bigger. And that. But that, how do we engage kids not only to get them active, but also as leaders? And I think for folks who have been working on this issue for a long time, that's the holy grail here, is when young people start owning this issue and leading it is when we're going to really take this to the next level. So love to hear some thoughts on your experience.
Okay. So the First Lady gave a nice little anecdote about how when she was young, she had the liberty and the opportunity to run around in her community and play with her friends and had that chance to learn and grow. A lot of the children that Coaching Corps deals with don't have that opportunity. They live in communities where they're discouraged from getting involved in physical activity because they simply do not have safe places to play. So what we have to do is then we need to figure out a way to get these kids in safe and healthy environments where they can grow and thrive and actually get involved and get moving. So basically where Coaching Corps comes in is that they change the game for these kids by providing volunteer, we're a group of growing individuals that are volunteer coaches going into these underprivileged communities where there are these marginalized children and giving them the coaches that they not only need, but they definitely do deserve. And the way to get these kids more involved is something that Coaching Corps is always dealing with and always trying to figure out new and innovative ways. From my personal experience, the best way to get a child involved in your program and keep them coming is to provide them with that safe and healthy environment. If a child feels uncomfortable coming and playing a sport with you, or they feel unsure or uncertain, they're not going to come, and they're not going to come back, and they might take their friends with them. And this is something that we're trying to avoid. And you need to understand, secondly, that these children are not coming for your drills. They're not coming for your promise of making them at a higher level of fitness. If I told a kid, hey, you're going to be really fit if you come play soccer with me, they're going to be like, take a hike, man, I got more important things to worry about. So what you have to do is you really need to acknowledge that this is a social building, as you said, a leadership building opportunity for these kids. They're coming into these programs because their friends are coming. They want to build these relationships with their friends. And I hope that they also want to come to hang out with me and get to know me a little bit better. But that's the main reason. So if you can create an environment where you have these kids together and socializing and trusting you and respecting you, that's the most successful way you can go about it. And ways that I've seen that you could do that is by just really getting the kids involved and almost letting them have their own stamp and their own impact on your program. You need to first develop a relationship with them. Just start out by asking them about their day, what they're up to, what they've been doing, what their interests are. And then as they slowly gain your trust and you gain their trust, you can tell them, hey, what do you guys want to do next week? What are things that you guys want to learn about? I coach soccer, so I say, what you guys want to do more shooting drills? You guys want to try heading the ball next week? What do you guys want to do? And then, so if somebody says, Cameron, I want to do World Cup next week, and then maybe soccer golf after that. If I go and do that program that next week, that kid sees, hey, Coach Cameron listened to what I wanted. He developed that program around what me and my friends wanted to do. They're going to come, they're going to tell their friends, this is a fun opportunity, you can do what you want. And then that creates that leadership role as I have a voice, my voice can be heard, and there's somebody there to listen, which these kids that we deal with haven't had for much of their lives.
Right. I think that empowerment is at the core of success. Can you briefly, was there a moment that in your experience that made you shift to not being like a player, an athlete, but wanting to be a leader in this? What was that moment, if you had one?
As far as the funny thing about, I've been a soccer player my whole life. That's what I identify with. Coming to UCLA, I got in there for academics. I didn't get in there to play soccer. So I quickly was pulled away from being involved and being a soccer player. And I really looked at what was important to me in my life and the people that were important to me in my life. And aside from my parents, the most influential people in my life were my coaches. And I've been fortunate enough to have the opportunity that my parents are supporting me through college. So I have the chance to give back. And so I said, the best way to invest my time is in children, because there are kids out there that don't have the same coaches, the same opportunities that I had. And I think it would have been extremely selfish of me to not have done this. That's really the way I feel. It's not something that I wanted to do. It's something that I felt I needed to do, because these kids need somebody like that. So that was really the moment when I understood that these kids need role models. They need mentors. Somebody needs to step into that role. I mean, if you're not going to do it, nobody will. So you take the initiative.
Right.
And so I did, and it's been great. I love it.
And here you are in the White House. Not bad, man. No, that's amazing, and I think it just shows that when we invest in young people and we take the time over the course of a young person's life, where it leads people to their whole perspective on what their role and responsibility is to the next generation. So that's inspiring, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Sarah, thank you for coming. Your work has been inspirational in Toledo, working with the YMCA and the JCC. I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the challenges that you face on bringing together, coalitions and really getting the support to kids. And what are the sort of three best practices, or the three things that you've found that are sort of critical to success in your work?
As with many of the communities, you've heard that safe places to play is a huge challenge and something that's reality for our community. So the YMCA is a great resource for not only our community, but also many of your communities. More than 75% of the country, households live within 5 miles of a YMCA. So it's a great place for kids to come play and be active and have fun, and it's safe. So several years ago, we created a program called Kids in Motion, where children could come and play. We offered it for free to the community, and this was several years ago. It's changed a little bit since then. But we've offered free physical activity where kids could come and play with structured role models, and we created curriculum for that. So a part of that challenge was, once that curriculum's created and you use it, what do you do to keep it exciting and ongoing? So there are very many resources in our communities where other people have created curriculum, and they're more than willing to come and help you implement that curriculum. So we worked with a lot of our partners to come and train our child development leaders on the curriculum. And as you know, child care development leaders are not typically versed in healthy nutrition and physical activity, so we've helped them learn some tips and techniques that they can take in their classrooms to easily implement the activities. In our child development centers, we have implemented guidelines where kids during the school year for after-school programs participate a minimum of 20 minutes of physical activity and play, and then during the summer, they participate in a minimum of 60 minutes per day. So that is one way that kids have become active, and as I mentioned, our partnerships are amazing. We've recently become involved in an initiative called Pioneering Healthier Communities through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and it kind of looks outside the program area. So what we're looking at more is policy systems and environmental change, taking looks at different things in our community, such as healthy corner stores, built environment, making sure that if kids live in a neighborhood where it's not safe to play or safe to walk to school, we take a look at those sidewalks and try to implement some changes so that the kids can walk to school or bike to school, and maybe families afterwards can take walks in the evening. We're starting another initiative actually next week at one of our local elementaries called a walking school bus. And we piloted this program last summer with our YMCA and an apartment complex that was nearby, where it was a very underserved part of town, and we wanted to come bring programming to that area and some system changes. So we talked to some volunteers, adult volunteers, to see if they'd be interested in learning what a walking school bus is and how to implement it. So basically, we've trained some adult leaders on how to safely walk kids from their apartments to our YMCA, where we had summer feeding going on, where we had healthy meals, not just, anything. It was healthy meals and fresh fruits and vegetables, and participated in physical activity and play. So they either received lunch or dinner free of charge, and then they participated in the physical activity and play, and if they were there long enough, they even got a healthy snack. So that was a really great program. And the walking school bus, we had over 40 kids just in one program participating just in one walking school bus. So we took it to their local elementary school, and we'll be introducing it to some volunteers next week and kicking it off with the school to do a walking school bus. That way kids can walk from their home to school in an organized fashion and not be too worried about the unsafe neighborhoods. So that's what we're working on. And like I said, we could not do any of this without any of our partners and the support that we have through our partnerships.
Yeah, we've been working actually very closely with the Y, and the Partnership for Healthy America just had a major announcement with the Y about nutrition and activity levels after school. It's been amazing, and the impact is we're already seeing it play out. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's just great.
Thank you.
It's all right. I love the enthusiasm. Robert, how are you, sir? So you and your wife, Amy, started Beyond the Ball, right?
Yes.
I would love to hear about this program and some of the impacts that go beyond just health and wellness, but how you see these efforts really impacting the children, the whole child that you're serving.
Sure. Well, Rob Castaneda from Chicago. I'd like to first of all thank my
What part
wife.
of Chicago, by the way?
The west side.
There you go. All right, I'm a South Side guy myself.
Little Village.
There you go.
Shout out.
Go ahead, Little Village. Hyde Park.
I'd like to first of all recognize my wife Amy, who's here with me today. She's my champion of change.
Where's Amy?
Right there.
Give it up for Amy.
But then also thank the First Lady and the Obama administration for setting this up to bring awareness to this. Being in Chicago, we've got our fair share of violence issues in Chicago, and it's actually the way my wife and I got into this work. My wife's a Chicago public school teacher, and we actually moved into the community where we live now because that's where she got her first full-time assignment back in 1998. And within that first year, we had our house set on fire twice by a local gang. They came back a third time, threatened to kill us for calling the police on them. And that's just what life is like in a lot of our under-resourced communities. And, after we decided that we were going to stay there, right, that was the easy decision, the fact that we're going to stay here. The hard decision was, what are we going to do, right? What are we going to do to help the kids that we work with in the community because of this, violence that's all around us? In our community, there's over 2,000 members of one gang and over 1,000 of another gang, and that's in 2 square miles. This last week alone, we've had 7 people shot, 3 killed, including a 6-year-old girl from our program, Biddy Ball program. For us, sports is a big part of our life. And, way too often, right, a lot of the programs out there, so we do sports-based youth and community development. And a lot of times youth development and these programs are, driven by space and access to space. And those are spaces that we just don't normally have, right? That's why we're under-resourced communities. Schools aren't open at all times. There aren't a whole lot of actual, places to play. And so we recognized several years ago the need to use the leverage that we get in building relationships through sport, which is a big part of it, and use that leverage that you can get through building relationships with youth and families in sport, and use that leverage to build safe community spaces. I think the longer we just keep focusing on creating or doing youth development and building safe spaces inside of buildings, the less opportunity is actually created for kids when they're not in school or when they're not in programs, because our kids need safe spaces to move in, right, when they're not in school, when they're just out in the neighborhood. And right now, kids are on the street more now than there are in a program and things like that. So as an organization, we work with our community, with other, partnerships is a big thing. A lot of great organizations work in the neighborhood. But, just using the idea of play and movement to bring people together, to create safe spaces, to reclaim our play spaces, so that, kids and families perceive them as places to be. Right now, they're places people fear, right? Because that's where fighting, that's where violence takes place. And, so a big part of our work is just that, right? It's creating those safe public spaces. But yeah, right now this is a really emotional time because we shouldn't have to be burying our 6-year-old children. This just happened Saturday. We'll go home and we'll go to her funeral this weekend. And, so I would say to, on this platform, right, for our, policymakers, our funders, having programs in schools is great. It's a great place to start, but we really need to be equipping our communities to be able to provide opportunities on a local level to reclaim those play spaces. It's simple things like lighting, right? If you have light in a park, that makes a big difference.
Yeah. And last week, I think 38 people were shot in Chicago and 9 were killed.
Within a 24-hour period.
Yeah. It's when kids have to grapple with that kind of environment, the notion of going out to run around that just doesn't make any sense to them, and especially for their parents. So when we think about trying to address these issues, obviously small community organizations can't do that alone, and it really is a call for building a broad coalition with stakeholders from every corner of the city and the country, because this is an issue that is so fundamental to all of life. Yeah. I mean, that also affects things like going to the grocery store or walking to school. And if your life is on the line, then maybe you should sit that day out and school out. And so we need to think as broad and big as we can about who needs to be at the table when we talk about these issues. So for the kids you can reach, you know, what do you, you know, are you able to break through with your program? What are the couple, is there an anecdote you can give or something to color sort of the impact when you're able to provide that space for some of the children that you're working with?
You know, I think in our community, we're the youngest community in the city of Chicago. We have over 40,000 youth under the age of 25 within 2 square miles. And so, right, when you work with youth in an environment where gangs are normalized, right, you know, we have kids who are dead. We have kids who, you know, are serving, you know, 30-year prison sentences. But we also have kids who are Bill and Melinda Gates Scholarship winners. We have kids who are teachers in the neighborhood now. And, you know, a big part about, you know, getting back to your question is, you know, just creating that environment to create positive peer networks. You know, we hear about gangs all the time, and that's those negative peer networks. But I think, you know, the thing that we're doing here through sport and play in the neighborhood is we're creating these positive peer networks, right? Mm-hmm. And these are networks that you know, as a mentor, as a coach, right, I can't be with every youth that we serve 24/7, but they're with their friends 24/7. And if we can put them around them coaches, right, people who can speak truth into their lives, people who they can bounce some of those ideas and give them direction, you know, and sustain those positive peer networks, right?
Right, right. So obviously what's built here is far greater than a ball, and I think the potential power for change that goes way beyond both sport and nutrition. I mean, we see the same thing when we get a grocery store in a community that has had none for a long time. It's like these foundational components, when you put all that together, is how you build a strong community that raises the future of our country. So thank you for what you're doing. It is inspirational. So I want to turn to Ed, good friend, and done amazing work with the U.S. Soccer Foundation, standing in for our champion, Hector Avila, who had to be with his wife today. An exciting day for him. But tell me about Soccer for Success, the framework of the program, the goals, maybe some of the challenges. But what are you seeing as you utilize the world sport, right? About some of the other successes that you're seeing across communities with Soccer for Success.
Thanks, Sam. First, let me say that I talked to Hector this morning, and he wanted me to be sure to say how honored he is to be recognized in this way, and that he really would have been here, but his wife is. When I got on the phone, I thought I was going to say within days, but when I talked to him, it sounded like within minutes of having their second child. So he has a good excuse for not being
I think
here.
We'll give him a pass. What do you guys think?
So, but Hector is the driving force behind a program called Soccer for Success that the foundation developed a curriculum for and pushes out into communities across the country. It's a sports-based youth development program in the after-school hours, offered free to children in elementary and middle school, and it uses soccer as a vehicle to engage children in fun activities in which they can also learn from their coaches. You heard a lot about coaches as mentors and teachers and leaders in the community, and that's one of the things that we under-leverage in this country, to be quite frank about it. You know, everybody says sports are good for you, et cetera, but the fact of the matter is they're best for you when you have a coach who actually thinks more about than just winning games, but thinks about how can I teach you, how can I educate you. So Soccer for Success is a program that builds that right into the play of soccer. Children are playing soccer, they have drills and games, but during that play, they are learning about what to eat, what not to eat, what to drink, living active, healthy lifestyles. And the program also delivers 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity 3 days a week. There was some talk about safety and the safe play spaces. This is an incredible issue. It's really nice to sit and say, why don't the kids just go out and play? Right. But in many communities, even well-to-do communities, parents don't let their children go out to play because they're afraid. So it's the importance of creating safe environments where children and their parents feel comfortable that my child can go out, have fun, have an activity. And when you see the laughter and the joy of the children's face, and you see the parents, how much they get out of seeing their children play in a safe environment, you can't put a value on that. And the health outcomes for children, being able to run around and get the physical activity they need, are incredible, as you know.
Yeah. And so what are some of the, where do you see this going? I mean, you guys work into, you know, what's the future of Soccer for Success?
Soccer for Success, we hope to scale it nationally. We're doubling the number of children served next year, from 8,000 to 16,000. We're working on new models to be able to provide the program in various environments, in school, out of school. But the after-school environment is the prime environment that we look for, because it is, the Justice Department will tell you, it's the most dangerous time for children is in the after-school hours, from the time they get out of school before their parents get home or whatever. And providing an alternative. When we talked with the Justice Department, we were looking at budgeting costs when we were trying to formulate the program. And we provide children with a jersey, and we think, well, you know, maybe we could cut that out. You know, and they're like, no, you can't cut that out, because that is the identifier for the kid that keeps them connected and feeling that they're belonging to a team, a positive team, and they're connected to that. And so we include that as part of the program. But Soccer for Success is the kind of program, it's easy to implement, it's low cost, there's a curriculum associated with it, and it focuses on delivering things in a simple way, not in a competitive way where it's about who has the undefeated record, but about how much activity are we getting these children, how much are we teaching these children, and how many opportunities are we giving them to have the kind of fun and freedom that we had as children growing up.
You said something that I think is so interesting, and it's really a theme that's being echoed is about the jersey. And the notion that in the end what we have here is this is a platform for kids to be connected to something bigger than themselves, and it's that connectedness that makes you feel, when you're a part of something something bigger, then you know that gives you hope. And I think we see that, you know, we've heard that in various different words, but I think it's something that cuts to the core of this that we're going to try to really work to lift up.
It's not only the child being connected, but what we were finding is that the program also connects the parents in a way that is interesting. So, for example, the children in Houston are going home and telling their parents, hey, we're supposed to be eating broccoli and spinach, you know, et cetera. And yet in the communities that they live in, those resources are not necessarily available. So what we've seen in some of our communities where parents have gone to the program and said, hey, is there any chance that you can get a farmer's market to come out on Fridays when the kids are practicing, and that we can get some of these things? You know, we're starting to see parents showing up at practices because they want to see their children play and have fun and laugh. And then suddenly you can engage fathers and get them involved in volunteering and providing the infrastructure in the community. So it becomes like a hook, a nucleus in the community that a lot can be built around.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm going to turn to Andre. I think, Andre, you can hear just how critical. Andre works in Portland for the Park Service and Sports Management. And I think you hear just how critical the role of cities are in creating safe spaces and real access to sport and to play. She is so cute. I love your pink dress. So I think that we see just, you know, that there's a lot of work being done, but without the support of the city, without leadership and real investment there, that, you know, communities are just going to fall short. So can you talk about some of the work you've done in Portland? What have been some of the keys to move that forward and be successful? Because you've done amazing, amazing work. And how should we be thinking about engaging cities and mayors and city councils on really getting behind some of these programs and efforts?
Okay, thank you. You have to bear with me. If you guys didn't notice, I'm used to going first, you know, and this is out of...
Hey, you know, we got to change it up a little bit,
change
right?
It up, okay. Well, I think Portland Parks, the city of Portland, we, again, it's what we've been hearing with the last panel and this panel as well. Partnership is definitely the key. We believe that we don't necessarily have any enemies in the city. And we want to partner with people because if you can do what we do and you can do it at a lesser cost and you can do it better, then we love to have you. You know, so that's something to keep in mind, because I think you guys need to go approach your local governments, because we're the ones that are resource rich. You know, so we have the fields and things that that you guys can utilize. You know, safe places, so to speak. So, you know, my staff and I, we run tons of youth programs, and so does the entire Bureau, but specifically for us, I manage our sports programs in Portland Park. So if there's a ball or a court, it's in my area of expertise. And right now, we run an enormous basketball league. And I'm going to talk about that because that's the bigger of the program. We do a partnership with Portland Public Schools, which is one of 5 school districts in Portland, Oregon. It is the biggest school district. What they do is they make their resources available. So their schools, don't quote me on the number of schools, but they have 100 and some odd schools in the city of Portland. What we do is we run our basketball league, and we have, just this past winter, we had 365 teams, I believe. And what we do, that is from
teams or people?
Teams.
Man.
300. And I'll explain how we get to that number. But it's from 4th grade through seniors in high school. So if you got high school kids that get cut from their high school team, we have a place for them to play. But with those kind of numbers, we don't have the facilities to facilitate the program. Right. So we have this partnership with Portland Public Schools. Now, from 3 to 6 o'clock, anything Portland Public Schools needs to facilitate their high school sports, because they don't have sports in middle school or elementary school in Portland. So anything they need to do or use of ours, we make it available. And in turn, on Saturdays, when I run our youth basketball program, they make their gyms available. So we play at 35 different sites on a Saturday. Start like clockwork. First game's at 9 o'clock, last game is at 4:10. You know, so partnership is the key to making these things available. And I think you have to look at it in terms of, we all here are serving the children. At least that's what we should do. You know, I can't tell you that I did this so I could be in the White House and be sitting here. No, I did this because someone took time out to help me when I was a kid. And if they didn't do that, I may not be sitting here. So my idea was, I got to give back in some kind of way, and that's how we do it.
I mean, I think everybody here understands that joint use is such a key lever for us to pull, and finding a better way to utilize just an unbelievable amount of space, safe spaces that do exist, that just aren't being opened to our kids, is critical. And that's an unbelievably amazing, I'm gonna call it beautiful, I was gonna say a beautiful model of what that can be. And I think we all are gonna have to work very hard at elevating that issue, making sure people become aware of it, because this is just it's as much of awareness as anything else, that people don't even realize what they're sitting on. And so that's fantastic. That's a lot of teams. It's pretty impressive.
It's a headache too.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is, but it's well worth it.
It is.
It's well worth it, my friend. Brian Bear Bosto, is that right? Bosto. You may have to give us a little background on the Bear nickname.
I don't know how I got it.
No? No idea. Can anybody guess? You work with Native youth, and we have been working very hard. Let's Move in Indian Country has been an amazing success as part of our platform. You started the Lax for Life program. I would love to hear more about your work, and briefly, so what are some of the keys or things we should be thinking about when we're working with Native youth, or specifically targeting youth in those communities where we can be the most effective?
Well, when you're talking about Native youth, you're talking about a lack of resources in Indian Country. Someone talked about diabetes earlier today. There's a lot of kids on the reservation that are that could be diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. Yeah. Lack of parenting. It might be single parents at home. Yeah. There's no father, no mentors, no uncles. A couple of years ago, when we started with the Lax for Life camp, it was just thrown out to tribal council. Council sent it to me. What can we do to get involved? So we contacted the people that met with the tribal councils and ended up started working with Andy Arlotta, from the Minnesota Swarm team. They're the professional lacrosse team in Minnesota. We had him on board. He wanted to bring that game back to the original players, which is Native American across North America. So we thought it was a pretty good fit with our center programming. The first year we started our year in 2010, a week-long camp. The thing about this camp, it wasn't just for my community, not just my reservation in my state. This camp opened up the door to 5 other reservations to bring down 5 other kids. So we're looking at 5 kids from maybe 90 to 100 miles away, leaving their communities to come to Fond du Lac to be a part of this Lacrosse for Life camp. So a lot of, like I said, my blog, that I got to say thank you to them for stepping up and being leaders to leave their communities to come to the camp. But, and it's not just the camp that we're teaching. We're not just coming in saying, all right, here's a stick, we're getting out in the field and go hit each other. It's not that. It's
well, that's good. I'm glad that that's not what's going on.
But what we ended up doing was we had the Native American Law Enforcement Summit, Clint Letch on board, Andy Arlotta, and what we ended up doing was bringing the law enforcement aspect, a lot of male mentors there, figures there. And that helped out. The first year we kind of, there was kind of a worry about these kids that were coming in, but they really opened up to the mentors, the chaperones, the law enforcement guys, and then we had them, the law enforcement, everyone come in and teach them or talk to them about drugs and alcohol, the use of this type of heroin, crack, that type of stuff, and tobacco even. So it wasn't just we're teaching them lacrosse, it was leadership skills, life skills, how to say no, and kids definitely loved the second year we had the U.S. Marshals on board. And they actually brought their tactical gear, so the kids, what do they call the suit? I can't remember. What do they call the suit, Josh?
They brought a ghillie suit.
Yeah, a ghillie suit. The kids, well,
that'll get them moving, huh?
Yeah. But, yeah, the kids definitely liked it, and it was amazed at how open they were with law enforcement officials, kind of open up their eyes.
Yeah.
This year, last year was our second year, we expanded the program to include girls, so which was kind of a little hard to do since it was all males planning the event.
Almost
But
out of that one.
the girls, we threw the girls in with a male sport, and I'm quite proud of the 9 girls that showed up because they definitely took all the awards at the banquet.
Not surprising. Yeah, give it up for them.
We are planning a 3rd year this year, and we do have the Minnesota National Guard on board, along with the University of Minnesota with donating youth lodging. So it's just all about partnerships, opening up the door, thinking outside the box. What resources can we bring to our community? And if you have people in place that have that mentality to bring resources in, you can get a lot of stuff.
And it's such and it's such a great way to connect you to real mentors that can put them on the right path. And you see, it's just one mentor away from changing a kid's life. Okay, Melissa, we're going to end with you. And you are just a phenomenal human being. What an inspiration. So, Melissa's a world champion para-triathlete. And, you know, probably by far the most skilled athlete in this entire room.
That's not fair to say.
It's
We
pretty.
have an Ironman in the audience.
Hey, I think you'll give him a run for his money. But listen, you are truly an inspiration. Please, you know, can you give us a little color on your Dare to Try program, and give us some insight about, you know, how we engage disabled youth, making sure that they're getting the activity that they need. It's, you know, there's some, you know, obviously unique set of challenges there, but equally as important to make sure that those kids are getting the activity and engagement that's possible. And we'd just love to hear your experience
Great.
about how you got here.
Yeah. So Dare to Try is a para-triathlon club, so that's swim, bike, and run, that serves youth, adults, and injured service members, such as myself, and gets them involved in the sport of triathlon. The club was started about a year ago with myself, Carrie Schindler, who's in the audience as well, and Dan Tunn, and all of us are avid triathletes, and realize the importance of getting at people with disabilities active and really the positive impact that it can have in their life. So what Dare to Try does is so for example, a youth athlete who may not have the resources to purchase the expensive equipment needed to be physically active. And that's where Dare to Try can step in. So we will provide a hand cycle, which is a bike that you basically ride with your arms, and we will get this athlete, this person in their wheelchair, out of their wheelchair and into this hand cycle and let them feel like what it's like to ride a bike. We'll provide them with a racing chair that they can get in and they can do the run part of a triathlon. We provide coaching where our athletes can come to us. They can come to swim clinics, run clinics, bike clinics, and they can get in the water with our experienced and certified coaches, and we can teach them how to swim again with their disability. And then you put all that together and we see them cross a finish line in a triathlon and talk about an impact. Talk about seeing their faces, light up. And you look over at the families and you can just see the pride on their faces and realizing not only what they've done physically, what they physically accomplished by swimming, biking, and running with a disability, but also that confidence. That confidence carries over into all aspects of their life. And it really raises the expectations for that family on where that child can go and how far they can go in their life. And I think there's a common theme here with kind of partnering together, and we've partnered with in Chicago, the Great Lakes Adaptive Sports Association and the Chicago Parks Districts. And by the passion that the three of us had starting this club and really being able to partner with these already established organizations and using their resources, the equipment, and the facilities, it's really grown our club faster and bigger than we ever could have imagined. And by going to physical therapy gyms and prosthetic places where I work, Sheck and Sowers Prosthetics, and really, encouraging our patients that come in that there are running legs that I have and that they can get as well, and they don't have to walk around and be in a wheelchair. They can be active as well. And just the confidence and just the impact we have on these athletes' lives and on their entire lives is pretty phenomenal.
I mean, it's just amazing. I think it's humbling for all of us, to know what you accomplished personally and how you're taking that to so many people who you're changing lives. So it's thank you, and we hope to continue to build on that and take it to new places. We're about out of time, but I just want to say a couple things. Today's just been amazing. First of all, thank you to Allie and and OP and other staff who helped put this together, President's Council. To Shelley and your team as well, you guys did an amazing job. We are completely dedicated to really turning this around and ensuring that all kids have access to sport and play. All kids, not just athletes, but all kids in need. And I think over the next year, our call is really going to be around uniting this space. We all have to work more closely together to support each other's work. We're all driving to the same set of goals. And the more we can leverage our efforts and the more we can support each other's work, the bigger this is going to become. And if we continue to work sort of off by ourselves in our one program, and we're over here talking about this over there, we're not going to be able to take this to a place where we're really touching everybody and that we attack these set of issues together. And so we're really going to work very hard on that. And we're going to work to really inspire a nation of young people to get active, because that's the other key component, to really take leadership and own this. And so as we're doing that, we're going to have to keep rethinking how we're implementing our programs, how we can make them better, how we can make them more effective, how we really are getting them to have the outcomes that we're striving for. And that's only going to happen if we continue to talk, share what's working, talk about what's not, let us know how we can be helpful. We'll let you know how you can be helpful. And together, I think there's a moment right now where we can really make incredible progress on this and really change the course of this nation. And so but only if we're really coming together around this set of issues. So this is an amazing example of what's possible, and we're going to continue to lift these efforts up and continue to drive this forward. So thank you for your work. This is just yet another new beginning to an amazing next few months, years, and decades ahead. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.